Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Stephen Sacker. Today, my guest at the Ambrosetti Forum in northern Italy is Spain's Foreign Minister, Josep Borrell. Spain has been through a tumultuous year, dominated by the political standoff in Catalonia and a series of political scandals which have left the Socialist Party in power. Josep Borrell is a Catalan, but he's adamantly opposed to Catalan independence. So, does he bring any fresh solutions to Spain's intractable problems? Josep Borrell, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you.
You are part of a new Spanish government which has been in power for 3 months or so.
100 days.
Yes. You have been wrestling with the problem that has dogged Spain for so long now, that is the problem of Catalonia. And in the time you've had, you have signally failed to change the dynamic, to change the crisis. Why is that?
The crisis is a structural one. It's going to last. It has been the cocoon for many, many times, without the central government doing nothing about it, just waiting and seeing and sitting and waiting. And now we face a situation in which an important part of the Catalan population has already disconnected psychologically about the idea of Spain. But they are not a majority. I am very, very sad when people say Catalonia is split in two parts.
But I come back to the point about how to change the dynamic. I would put it to you that when Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez appointed you to a very senior position in the government, that was a signal to Catalans that he was not interested in reaching out in a new way, because you are seen in Catalonia, and of course you are Catalan, you are seen in Catalonia as a man who has been adamantly opposed to all of the claims of the independence movement.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I hope that the Prime Minister appointed me as Minister for Foreign Affairs for something more than that. Maybe for my European experience, and because I've been President of the European Parliament, I have quite a bigger record than just opposing Catalan independence. But my contribution...
But you're right, but of course Catalans read the detail, and you are a man who, for example, has dismissed the current leader of the Catalan regional government, Quim Torra, as a man worse than Marine Le Pen. That was your phrase for him.
No, exactly. My phrase was, Mr. Torra could not be part of an electoral list of Marine Le Pen, because Marine Le Pen throw out of the electoral list to people for saying much less than Mr. Torra said.
So your message to those who support Catalan independence is that they are, in essence, part of an unacceptable, anti-democratic, far-right political movement. And they regard that as libelous, wrong, and a complete misreading of what the Catalans want.
I never said that. The Catalan independence is half of the population, 2 million people. And in 2 million people you found every kind of people. You found people who are the way you are describing, and others who are not at all like this. And let's talk about the thing that I've said, not about the things they say I've said. For example, I said once, this Catalan society is wounded. They have deep wounds. We have to heal them. But before healing them, we have to disinfect the wounds. And the translation of these people has been said, that I said that we have to disinfect Catalonia, which is not exactly the same thing.
This is a fascinating discussion, because at the back of my mind I always have to keep telling myself, don't forget the foreign minister is himself 100% Catalan. So let me ask you just a very basic question. Do you regard Catalonia as a region or a nation?
A nation.
A nation, quite clear.
Ah.
And you also recognize, I guess, as Spain did in a UN covenant from 1976, which Spain signed, you recognize the right of people to have self-determination. So if you recognize that right, and you recognize that Catalonia is indeed a nation, then I am struggling to understand how you cannot allow the Catalonian people an authorized referendum on their right to self-determination.
Let's once again use the right words. It's not autodetermination, it's secession. First, the Spanish Constitution doesn't allow for it. It is a sentence of the Constitutional Court saying clearly you can ask about secession. You can ask about secession, but every question you want to put about it has to be done on the framework of a constitutional change. Second, there is nothing in the international law that gives Catalonia the right to secession, in spite that Mr. Torres saying that every day is completely false. Only in Abyssinia, in Ethiopia maybe, or some island in the Caribbean, the right to secession is recognized. And in the international law, there is no basis at all for that.
Well, there are some lawyers who disagree with your take on that, but in a way, this is about politics as much as it is about a fine reading of the law. What do you think it says?
The fine reading of the law is quite important.
Well, it's not unimportant, I agree with you, but politics is important too. What do you think it says about Spain today that you have in Spanish prison 9 activists, Catalan politicians, who it seems are going to face trial on charges of sedition and rebellion in October? What is that saying about Spain to the international community? Because frankly, it looks like political show trials.
I personally would prefer these people to be conditionally free. I think there are other ways of taking care that they don't fly.
So why does, getting back to the basic question,
your
government and its responsibility to find new ways of tackling the Catalan crisis, why doesn't your government pardon these people? Tell the authorities that these people are going to be pardoned, they should be released now, and then start to talk to them.
Have you heard about division of powers? In Spain, there is a division of powers. And the judiciary is independent. It's a judge who has taken this decision. The government has nothing to do with it.
So you're going to see those trials go ahead. You're going to see Carlos Puigdemont, for example, staying in Brussels or Germany, wherever he chooses to be, with your government desperately seeking extradition and being rebuffed by the German courts. And the international perception of Spain is going to be that of a country that simply cannot accept the desire of what you call a nation within your state to get a vote on its own future.
Once again, Catalonia is split in 2 parts. Don't talk about Catalonia as being an homogeneous thing, you know. Catalonia wants. I am talking the name of Catalonia, as Mr. Catoro say everything. 47% of the people voted for independence. It's not even half of the population.
Then, Minister, give them the authorized vote, which Madrid will sanction, and then let's see. And if you're right, then of course the secession will not happen.
Do you think in a country like Spain we have to obey the sentences of the Constitutional Court? Do you think we have to obey the sentences of the Constitutional Court in a country who ranks among the 20 full democracies in the world? Yes, but in this case we can do it, but in the framework of a constitutional change.
You said yourself, quoting you from the Financial Times 3 months ago, the separatists have successfully revived the black legend, you call it, tying Spain to the repression of Franco, even the Spanish Inquisition back in history.
Yeah.
You said we are losing the information war. Do you, in this sort of conversation today, do you think you're winning the information war?
I am not fighting against you.
No, but the point is you're trying to win in the court of public opinion, both in your own country, in Catalonia, and in the wider world. Do you think...
That's why I'm giving this interview.
And you think you have a winning message, do you?
We have to start changing the trend. We start changing the trend. Look at the press. We analyze the press every day. And we analyze what the government says. And it's clear that when people listen to Mr. Torra saying the Catalan people is suffering the same kind of situation than the Kurds in Turkey, or like the Moroccans in Rif, and we want to become the new Kosovo, well, people start thinking that it's not really serious.
I guess the analogy that people would draw, the comparison would be Scotland. The British government gave the Scots the right to vote on their own future. In the end, the Scots voted to stay as part of the Union, the United Kingdom. Scotland is the comparison.
Not the right. Today, the Scottish people are asking for a new referendum, and Mrs. May is saying no. If they had the right, they shouldn't be asking for permission.
Let's talk about other key challenges facing your nation today. No doubt one of them is migration. It's a problem for many different countries around Europe, but particularly pressing in Spain, where you've seen the numbers of immigrants arriving this year spiral up to, I think it stands now at something like 27,000, far higher than last year.
To be exact, 34.
34 now.
It's not so much.
Not so much. It represents a rise of well over 100% on the same time last year.
You know, the rate of change depends on the initial position of the variable. You were at 0, you go to 1, it's a big increase. But in absolute terms, it has been a peak in the summer. Every summer it's a peak. And now it seems, things seem to be more or less going back to a stationary situation.
But it is very interesting what your government has decided to do. Premier Sanchez has essentially tried to differentiate himself from what we hear in Italy, for example, where we sit today, where the government has refused to take any more migrant boats that have been full of people trying to escape from North Africa. Italy won't take them. Spain has taken 2 or 3 of those boats in a humanitarian gesture. And Pedro Sanchez refuses to play the populist game. Do you think politically in Spain that's going to cause him and you a problem?
Maybe, we will face it. Pedro Sanchez represents today a strong pro-European stance and a strong anti-populism stance. We can make mistakes, but our idea is clear about Catalonia, about immigration, about Europe, about everything. We are not looking for the applause. We try to present things in a rational way. And I will go back to Catalonia once again, if you allow me to give another example. About migration, what Pedro Sanchez has done is to produce a kind of electroshock. The Europeans were looking on the other side and not helping Italy. I understand Italians. They have been let alone for years in front of a migration that could not manage themselves. And Pedro Sanchez came and said, we have to face the problem all together. And it's happening.
Yeah, the problem is that your refugee centres, migrant detention centres are full. Your facilities now are being overwhelmed. The Popular Party, led by Pablo Casado, is now saying that your policies risk making Spain a magnet, a pull factor for more and more immigrants. He said there are 1 million people in North Africa who are now looking to come to Spain. You could be overwhelmed. You could suffer the consequences that Angela Merkel suffered in 2015 in Germany when she said we must keep our borders open.
And he got 1.5 million people. Don't exaggerate. We are talking 30,000, 35,000 in one side, 1.5 million in the other. I think things are different. Magnet, you say a magnet, the whole Europe is a magnet for African youth. Go to Senegal, look at the TV, there is the magnet. They don't need anything more than that.
So when your rival, Mr. Casado, says this, he says, it is fundamentally not for Spain to absorb these people who are looking for a better life in Europe. We have to say no, even if it is not politically correct to do so. What's your response?
We have to make a clear distinction between asylum seekers and irregular migrants which don't have the right to asylum. We have to make a clear and quick distinction among them. And we have to send back to the people who don't deserve asylum. People have to understand that with our demography, we need migrants. But we need migrants in a regular and organized way.
I just wonder whether you listen to the voices, and I picked this up from the Spanish press the other day, just one typical voice from the south of your country, from a place called La Línea, which is close to a detention center. It's a 34-year-old builder, a construction worker. He said this to the press. He said, "We in Spain risk becoming the fools of Europe, welcoming whoever wants to come. We cannot afford these policies."
Once again, the figures, the reality, the facts are not the way this man is describing.
Yeah, but you know better than me that in Europe today, indeed in many parts of the world, data, facts aren't necessarily as important to politics as emotions, to the way people feel. I'm telling you about how evidence is changing of people's feelings in Spain.
I can tell also about feeling of people, the measures that are putting at the service of the migrants, the gymnasium, the municipal installations, they're offering hospitality. I can tell you about how many Spaniards feel solidarity. In Spain there is not Le Pen, there is not Orban, there is not Salvini, there is not this new prime minister in Austria, there is no Willers. We are, thanks God.
Really? Spain is fundamentally different, do you think, from the rest of Europe?
What is the Spanish Le Pen? What is the Spanish Wilder? What is the Spanish Salvini? What is the Spanish Orban? They are not.
It is interesting that Spain today has a socialist government. One could argue it's partly by accident because of political scandal, which did for the Popular Party and Prime Minister Rajoy. But nonetheless, you are in power now as the Socialist Party. You only have, 80-something seats in a parliament of 300, but you're in power. Do you think that you can reverse the trend we see in much of Europe where traditional social democratic centre-left parties are doing disastrously badly? How do you change that dynamic?
We have to punch above our weight. Once upon a time, during Felipe González's government, they were part of it, Spain was playing...
That's when the Socialist Party was powerful.
And I'm playing an important role in Europe. I'm playing an important role in Europe. Powerful, I'm playing an important role in Europe.
But that, with the greatest respect, was in the 80s and 90s. Here we are in 2018. Yes, you're in power, but a minority government with an uncertain future. My question to you is, how do you change the trajectory for centre-left social democratic politics? Because in most of Europe, these parties, like yours, are in disastrous shape.
I wouldn't say disaster, but bad. Look, social democracy was a 40% party, 40% of the vote everywhere. And now we are a party of 20% of the vote everywhere. And for sure, this is not going to be changed overnight. But Portugal and Spain can represent the renewal of social democracy. I think it's an opportunity.
Here's an interesting comment from an analyst who has been consulting for the SPD, the Social Democratic Party in Germany, Michael Brunning. He says, social democratic parties in Europe have forgotten how to mobilize. We see the far right mobilizing. We even see the out and out left, represented by people like Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, mobilizing. What we don't see is traditional old school parties like yours really mobilizing, particularly young people.
I agree with your diagnosis. I think that social democracy has become an establishment party, has cut their legs.
You're part of the elite, part of the status quo. Look at you. I mean, with all due respect, a long and distinguished career, but you were what? You were one of the most senior figures in the European Parliament. Your government service goes back to Felipe González. You are part of Spain's elite.
What's bad with that?
Well, we're in an era of anti-elite politics. That's what's bad with that.
I think this is a bad trend on the politics in Europe.
But that's a classic elitist thing to say. It's how people feel right now. They're sick of the status quo. They're sick, frankly, of people like you.
But believe me, I understand them very well. I am a cosmopolitan nomad. I am traveling and here and there. I am part of elite. And I understand very well that people who have been damaging by the consequences of globalization don't feel protected by social democracy. We have cut our links with popular classes. That can be mended. That can be mended. And I think that the message of Pedro Sanchez and the government, with a lot of new young people, not all people like me with maybe too much experience, are on this mood. We have to reconstruct our link with popular classes and our capacity of mobilization. Your diagnosis is very good. I share it perfectly.
Before we end, I must touch upon another challenge facing not just Spain, but the entire European Union, and that is Brexit. We in Britain maybe are somewhat obsessed and preoccupied with it, but it does matter to Europe too. I just spoke here in Italy to Matteo Salvini, perhaps the most powerful politician in Italy today, and he said he believes that the EU is trying to swindle, to cheat Britain from its own self-determination, its own will expressed in a referendum. And he says France and Germany are not being sufficiently helpful, and he would like to see more concessions made to Britain to find a good deal to allow Britain to leave with a deal that it can work with. Where do you sit on that?
The Spanish government is working in order to reach an agreement. We believe that no agreement is the worst solution, and we are putting on the table constructive proposals. I don't know which are the proposals of Mr. Salvini. No?
I suppose in essence it gets down to this. Mr. Macron in France insists there will be no cherry picking. Theresa May in London says, look, we want parts of the single market, we want free trade in goods, for example, but we will not accept the free movement of people. Are you prepared to do a deal on that?
No. No, clearly no. I don't think any country in Europe can accept to split the freedoms, the 4 freedoms in which is based the European Union. About these 4 freedoms, I take this because I like it. Oh, this one I don't like it, I don't take it. No, Europe is not being built like this.
What are you scared of? Why are you so worried that giving Britain a bespoke deal, if I can put it that way, would be so detrimental, so damaging to the EU?
It's a matter of political project. It's not a matter, Europe is not a supermarket, you know.
No, but is the EU so fragile, so weak, that if Britain gets a bespoke deal, it could lead to the collapse of the entire union? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't think so. No.
So what's the problem? Britain's a powerful neighbour, the most important trading partner for the European Union on the continent of Europe.
And I regret that he is leaving. I regret deeply. I think that they made, from my point of view, a big mistake, but it's up to them to decide. But they have to understand that Europe is a political project. It's not a supermarket where you go and I take this, or I take this. No. You are part of it, or you are not part of it. You are not part of it, we will have the best possible relations. And believe me, the Spanish government is working very hard in order to reach an agreement, because if not, we will suffer. Spain.
Josep Borrell, we have to end there, but I thank you very much for being on Hard Talk.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I appreciated a lot of your questions.
Foreign Minister, thank you very much indeed.